right. We are rolling, rolling on the river. It's so funny because I feel like we do this often enough that we don't need introduction, but I do forget that sometimes people find us and they're like, oh, who are those three ladies? So Lily Earthling Kolosova, Christine Anderson, and Claudia of Earth Empaths. We've been making videos for a while now, from everything from the divine feminine to disclosing disclosure to individuated consciousness in the unified field. And usually what we do is we pretty much, some people might say we're shooting from the hip, but I like to say we're shooting from the heart. And we don't really have an agenda when we go into one of these talks. It's more of an inner intuitive feeling that brings us together, that we feel like we have something to express. And in that expression, those that find value with it, may they find value. And that's what we give here and we offer from ourselves. So we were kind of playing around before I started to record this. And it for me right now, I'm going to do with Lily and Claudia the best I can to describe the energetics as I'm perceiving them through my own consciousness and the shift. People call it the shift, they call it the wave, they call it ascension, they call it by many, many names. And I'll hand it off to you really quickly, both Claudia and Lily, because what I'm finding for myself is I don't have the language. I don't have an adequate language to express what I am picking up. And it's such a continual incoming flow of information. I just will call it field information, data. And it doesn't have an ideology. It doesn't have a mythology. It doesn't have anything attached to it. It's pure data streams. And that sounds very computerized, and I don't mean it in that way, because it also has an amplocosmic feel to it. It has a feel of how it's impacting us as bioorganisms, living, breathing organisms, and our planet. And so I'm going to just kind of leave it there for a moment and let you go, Lily, and let you go, Claudia, and see what I can try to, during this conversation, add from how I'm perceiving it and what I'm feeling these changes are.
I agree with you completely on there not being adequate a language. And I think it's because it is something so new to us for now. We may well have been there before, but we certainly have forgotten everything. I have trouble finding words to express what I perceive. I think, well, for me personally, the best way to look at it is that when you look for truth and when you stand in truth, you expand. And then you enter a stage where the world is more than words, much more.
Mm-hmm. So in another way we could express it is we've stepped outside of the box, and that's the constraints of time, even the constraints of location in a space-time compendium. And so, and I love you said that, Claudia, because that just echoes one of my thoughts this morning. I was thinking, I have been asking for most of my adult years, but steadily since at least over 27 years, I know my consciousness says, I want to know. I want to know. I want to know. And I haven't been satisfied with fakery, hypocrisies, any of the offerings of the world that the ego might, wealth, riches, fame, any of those things that the world as it's structured right now offers us. And so this I want to know mantra that I've had for myself, it just struck me today. You want to know? Okay. We're at that verge of a knowing, and yet it's so unknown. I mean, there's the dichotomy right there in that I realize that everything that's precursed my consciousness right now has been a preparation to be able to embrace this unknown aspect. And so you said it in another way. If you stand in truth, I want truth. Well, I want truth, and I want to know truth. I don't want somebody else to tell me truth.
Yeah.
I want to know
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly how I had put it to myself before we came on this recording. So now try to take that knowing that is an undefined, really. I don't know. I know, Lily, that you are seeing a lot of things yourself and experiencing them. Maybe you have some words for that.
Yeah, it's I've been talking about that, and I've called it a living field.
Mm-hmm.
And I also been trying to find some kind of terms to explain the difference with this field and the field of information that is static. It's just information that is not in fluid time. Because I have been talking about fluid time and what it is, and how it's this living energy field expresses through fluid time. And what is fluid time? It's the energy, it's the building energy of matter in here. And then in linear time is what we get is when we are in this time stuck in this dead cycle that's been dead, is just repeating itself. And so right now, what it feels like, this whole awakening that we say awakening, that has been hijacked too, because what had happened with alternative communities is when the people started awakening, the system had set up people in there to where they will cap them and call that awakening process, but it was a reprogramming into another stand down program, to where people do not even think to touch on this living field of fluid time and information. Like you said, it's an information field. It is all that is before it can ever exist in matter. It's all possibilities. It's our history. It's our everything, this living field. And the thing is that when in 2014, when I tried to come out and express what it means, what this field is, to be honest with you, we talked about, and Christine, you mentioned how hijacked all these words are. And they are. And the more, and I've tried to express that and say, listen, this is all programs. And that the real living field is here. It's in your spirit. It has no words. Is that what before words, before anything? It's the energy you can only feel through your living spirit that is given to you by this planet, that is part of this planet, in oneness with this spirit of this mother planet that we're on. And so that's why I kept talking about going in and getting the knowing and information from within, because everybody has access to this field, but it's up to them to find it. And so the system set up so many traps for those that wanted to connect with this living field. And I think what is happening right now is that this living field, as we call it, is expanding. It's expanding within those that have done their, inner work and came into their own being. And those that do that, they start to see how hijacked everything around us has been, and how we've been manipulated into being stuck in this linear timeline that we actually create, because we're the creator beings. So we were coerced and manipulated into creating this time loop. And so for that time loop to still exist, they have to do all this manipulation and hijacking of all the terms and everything. And that energy that we're expressing and experiencing, we are finding that we can't find words to explain, because every word that we can find has been hijacked with an overlay of dead light information, as I call it. Mm-hmm. And that people get stuck in that loop. Okay, if you say this, this is what it means. It's very difficult to express to people, and especially those that are in that high mind control system. And most people are. They don't even recognize that most people
Maybe we could talk about a little bit on a specific level of observations, not people's names or anything, or maybe even our own observations with ourselves that indicate when you're stuck in a loop. Because somebody, I met a just incredible being yesterday, a human being on the planet, met him for the first time yesterday, and we were talking about distortion fields. And he said, every time we're in the living field and we start to name and separate it out, we're distorting it. We're the distortions. You know, everything out there in the living organic planes, and there's multiples and multiples and multiples of them. We're not talking just about one plane of existence. We're talking about a multiples here. You know, to be able to really truly experience that as a being, you don't delineate it by thought patterns. And so this brings me to one of the things that I find is an indication to me. How much silence can I hold? How much space do I have between my thoughts? We're naturally going to make thoughts. We're naturally going to try to communicate with language. However, how much space do I have in me? Because I think this is something everybody's so full and so running around and so have to, and you know, all the pressures that get exerted on us, no matter what our lifestyle is, that don't allow that expand. And you said it, Lily, that expansion. And then when you have an expanded space, even between molecules or nanoparticles, energy can flow. That's when energy starts flowing. So, you know, that's why I'm very, myself, I look at new age ideas or people that are doing different healing modalities, or they call it this, and it's all systematic. I find that also is disturbing. Now, I'm not trying to criticize it, because maybe you have to pass through those things, but we all have this ability in ourselves to cultivate it. I mean, we have to cultivate ourselves here. And, you know, so that for me would be my one thing of my own inner dialogue is, how much space do I have? How much silence can I hold? Because I know when I'm not comfortable, I can't hold silence. When I'm not comfortable with me and my relationship to flow or universe, I find it very difficult to hold silence. But silence is, for me, that's just...
that's the thing. You said it so beautifully, Christine. It's that space of that silence. This is what, when I talk about, you feel this field, you can only feel it in that silence, in that expansion. And that's why, you know, I sometimes laugh at people when they create this mental teachings about what self-empowerment is. What is it to being a self-sustainable creator being? When they spit out all these programs about it and their mental sort of level understanding of it, I mean, it's funny. for most part, it is funny to me because this field, an expansion of this field and knowing the self is what it is. It's the more you can experience this silence is and this expansion from within you as a being that is a creator being, capable of manifesting reality, time, space, all within us. And so when we create this, just another box of mental understanding of it, we just distorted it. We just distorted it. And this is why I say, and I always said to people, I am not a teacher because I cannot teach anybody. Because if I sit here and say, I can teach you how to expand from within, then what I'm telling you that I control you.
Yeah.
If I can tell you that, especially when people charge money for it and they say, for this much, I can teach you how to expand your own spirit into a fluid time. I mean, it's laughable to me that I understand how it is so up to each individual to attain that. If you want to call it, and people say it's enlightenment, that's been hijacked so bad, but it's the ability. It's your own ability that we have to wake up within us. And for us to wake up those abilities, we have to let go of all the boxes. All the mental boxes. And I've talked about it like 2 years ago about what is this all self-healing really means. It's regaining your own ability to be who you are, which is a creator being. A creator being has access to fluid time, period. Because a creator being, which you're talking about, Christine, it's that plasma energy. It's those that can expand that energy and create with it and intent with it, not with the mental body, but in this field, in this fluid energy that is a living energy. All possibilities exist there. And so, of course, in what I'm seeing right now is that the system and the new age has been just the result. And what we see, as we call it in alternative spiritual communities, most of it, and I've said it in the past, 99% of it was this distortion field that is just pulled and locked into this thinking box, or just a replacement of a belief system. And usually it will have some kind of savior tone to it. Be it that it's even, you're your own savior, but it's gonna have a separation from the fluid time, from the living field, and from all of that stuff. And it's gonna be all
You said
mental.
this just now, Christine. Every time we try to express it, even right now, we try to express it in some way because we're using this distorted terminology and everything. It already distorts. And this is what I'm saying, that people then, when they only listen to this through their mental level and through the filter of their belief systems, be it be it a self-empowerment belief system, be it itself, there is a self-freedom, a self-sovereignty program that's out there, and it's so obvious that, I mean, I don't want to laugh about it, but it is funny to me, because people that are, and it's not, I'm not trying to put anybody down. What I'm just saying is I'm seeing this. I'm seeing so much of it. So much of this sort of new belief systems, but they're all the same, same distortion field, same, you know. And what is happening is I see how these people that are operating in this distortion field that are sort of like the shepherds or the controllers, or some people that we see the leaders of some of this spiritual communities or spiritual teachings or things like that. They operate in this distortion field, but because we're putting the information out, I can almost see it, how it's like a predator, energetic predator that grabs it and copies it, you know, this information that we put out. But because those people have no access to the living field themselves, they can only create another box out of it, and they could call it a self-sovereignty. And that once you reveal it, and once we talk about this distortion field, it's like magic, you know. Once you tell people how it's done, you know, it's no longer magic. So same here. Once you tell people, well, there is a distortion field that is very, very active right now.
Let me jump in for a second, Lily, because it brings up some practical thoughts, all right? Because in all of what we're talking about, there's a practicality to a daily life, you know, in this reality that we're still currently enmeshed in. And, you know, I think one of the things that happens, and I'm listening to you and your experience with working with a group of people. So what they're really doing is they're taking your inner dialogue. This is your personal inner dialogue with this living field. And you're bringing it out through you to share it, to express it, because it is your expression. And we, all of us, express uniquely. But somehow by recording it or trying to capture it and go back to it, what we've actually done is we've stepped out of fluid time at that moment. This moment right now can't really be recaptured. This is why when Claudia's in the room with us,
I am here.
I know you are, darling. I can feel you. But it's like Claudia holds a large silent space. Right? So if you were to listen, and this will be published and people will listen to it. So I'm inviting anybody to listen through our words, to the space between our words, not to take Lily or myself or Claudia as anything special. I mean, I'm at a place right now, and this is one of my own measures. I'm so tired of my personality. I don't want to be a personality. I really am. You know, I mean, I have to express my uniqueness, but this is one of the biggest things that I see on this plethora of people talking all over the internet, is that it's a developed personality. And not only am I projecting my personality, other people out there see my personality, whether they like me or dislike me or find value or don't find value, and then they're projecting it back to me. And this is where the immediate distortions come in, right there, immediately there. And, you know, not to say that we can't learn through all of that. Of course we can. But I'm like, I don't know, just recently I'm like, I don't know if this is even going to maintain itself as a valuable means of communication for much longer. Because of what you just described, Lily. Because you see, until another person, the listener and the speaker, are actually meeting on that plane, they're really communing between the words. They're already knowing together. They're not, you know, I'm better than you, and I'm your teacher, and I'm your healer, and I'm a this, and I'm a that, and I'm a, you know, I'm a Reiki master, and I'm a, you know, past life, you know, master. I'm not any of those things. I'm going to meet, if I meet you, right there in that living field. Mostly it's because I'm excited to share verbally, but I'm not trying to teach you something.
Because it's about interaction. You are in that field, I am in that field, and then we co-create in that field, meaning we expand together that energy of that field. And so this is why, you know, I absolutely love to have these talks, because there's so much that we sort of birth together as a group of that new understandings. It's about relationship with this field and you as part of this field. So I am part of this living field because I'm a living spirit. You are part of this field because you're a living spirit. So you're a living being. My living being is recognizes you as a living being, as a creator being, having access to all possibilities. And this is how co-creation that starts, is with energetic connections and energetic relationships. Mm-hmm. But what I see with this distortion field is that all of that is so really valuable to us, because if it wasn't, I would stop doing the group talks and you know, chats like that and all of that stuff, because it wouldn't be valuable. It is valuable. But what I think is kind of interesting, and what is more interesting to me, is the more we actually operate from this fluid time in this living field, the easier it is to see the distortion field. Mm-hmm. And how it works. And it really is, it's so powerless though to do anything to those that operate in this field. So that's why I say, when people start doing all these accusations, you know, and this is why I laugh when people accuse me that I've took a group of people in our soul group and I'm taking them into the darkness or something, you know, and when people attack me and everything, because the people that are in there that understand or are, and they're in touch with this field, to them, those words and those accusations are funny. Mm-hmm. Because they understand their own self. They're in their own self, and they know that when you in that field, there is nothing I can do to anybody in that field to discourage them from their own self-empowerment, no matter what I say or what I do, because I'm an equal co-creator in that. What we have is this relationship and an exchange, interaction of our personal living field with each other, because we are one field as human collective. And I've been talking about this for years now. Mm-hmm. By doing our own personal attaining your own self-empowerment, standing in your own self, standing in this field and expanding. And as we expand, we're going to attract and interact with other people that expand in that field. And then we move into a collective level healing of this distortion field. And so there is collective level issues that are going to become really, really obvious. And we're seeing that. And a lot of things are coming to the surface for a collective level. We've talked about this in a couple of conversations before where we didn't record it. What is happening with all of the history? Mm-hmm. All of that has to come out. All of the truth has to come to the surface. And we were excited about the fact that it's coming to the surface because we don't have fear about it. This is the other thing, is that I keep saying, the one thing that you're going to know that you're operating in this field, because it's a living field, is the fearlessness. the fear does not exist in it. So when people try to talk about self-sovereignty, but yet they're standing in the center of fear and project from fear, that, to me, I laugh at it now because it's comical. It's clownish. It looks like a clown with the sad face underneath, like, you know. So it's self-sovereignty painted on top of fear face, you know. This is kind of energetically how they look like to me, how they feel. But the thing is, you know, I am with my big mouth always point that out to people. Say, hey, look at how cartoonish that shit is.
Mm-hmm.
And people get upset because it upsets their personality. It upsets their ego. Because here they are created a new program, self-sovereignty program, and they're still standing in a stand-down, fear-based program. And when you point that out so clearly to them, then they tell you it's your fault. Lily, it's your fault because, you know.
Well, you know, see, Lily, I had just the other day, I mean, it's been coming for a while, and I know Claudia's reached this point before I did. And maybe you'll speak about it, Claudia. It's like when you're dealing with something so distorted, it's like speaking into a energetic quagmire, and you really can't get through. And so I've been studying this for a while, because, you know, when we take our energy and we push into it, it's like we're impressing into something that's going to rebound it, because it doesn't want truth. It doesn't want real sovereignty, because there's still fear driving it behind. That's the number one reason that all of these egos are made, that all of these false identities and religions are made. It's the cover of fear. And so, you know, I understand that as we do that, I'm looking for, and I'm going to ask Claudia a little bit about how her perceptions on that. You know, I'm like a battering ram, like you are sometimes, Lily. I just, you know, like, you know, you will hear me, you will hear me. And then, but recently I've been looking at that in another way, like, where's the finesse? Where's the piece that, like a fine surgeon, just to use a metaphor, you know, or like a homeopath or an acupuncturist is probably a better metaphor. Where is that right vibratory frequency that can disarm this distortion field? You see, where is it? Because it's primed. It mimics us. It's being driven by fear. And so it's not going to allow, and I watch it too, just like you. I can see it in people. I see it in situations. It just morphs, and it's like a snake almost. It's like this. It's tracking you. It's going, where is she going next? And it's ready to counter you, even if it's cartoonish and clown-like, because it has only a few tools. It really doesn't have very many. It's not that creative itself, but it does have that ability to do that. So, Claudia, I know you've looked at this and we've talked about it. I would like to see if you have something to add.
No, where to start? You recognize any program because of the fear. And there's always a pattern to it. Anything that is repetitive in behavior, you can pretty much bet it's a program. And for me, this is a brilliant way to watch my own programs, because the system has so many programs that humans are prone to or receptive to, that, you know, there are probably not enough numbers in the world to describe the number of programs. But once you kind of look into it with yourself being reasonably detached, so you don't completely freak just how programmed you are, then it becomes interesting, because then you start picking out each program. Mm-hmm. And then once you've done that, you can actually see where your own programming is and where you want to take it, what you're willing at your current state of I don't know, knowledge, knowing, inner knowing, which direction you want to go, and let go of more programs.
So it is really an inner deprogramming aspect that goes on.
Absolutely.
And, you know, that's truly the case, because as I just said, I mean, I can't really, if somebody is deeply enmeshed in their own programming, nothing I say is going to really change that. However, I do think with enough consciousness, expanded consciousness, because expanding consciousness, to describe it with my words, is not a abstract, it's power. And
Absolutely.
it's inner driven, inner generated power. And I don't mean power over either. Consciousness can move mountains. Consciousness can change whole dynamics. Consciousness can create. So, you know, simply sometimes just holding that consciousness, awareness in a given situation is enough, or the better aspect, than constantly batting my head against it. And I had to deprogram myself, as I am programmed to the hilt to counter. I am programmed to the hilt to counter. This has been my device of my own self-preservation, frankly, through many, many, many lifetimes. And we all of us, if we're really honest with ourselves, have that. If we're really honest with ourselves, we'll see it when it comes up. It's an energetic block. You can really start to see yourself in energy. It blocks. You know, I have to admit to myself routinely on a daily basis, given encounters I have with people that I'm not in that communion flow with, there's an energetic, right? Well, there's an energy that wants to rise in me and counter. And so, you know, this is the stage of self-awareness that we're after, really, without having somebody give us a chart and a diagram and codify us again so that we have a new code. I'm a this, I'm a that. You know, no. When you stop those countering energies, because it's energy. And if you have a lot of energy, you're responsible for what you do with that energy. We are responsible for what we do with this life energy. So it's to be fluid. Now, sometimes it's necessary. I'm not saying it's not. Sometimes if somebody's really attacking you, if you are really, you know, you have to, you know, make that block and then make that move over here. You've got to redirect that energy. That's the true mastery. And we're still in fluid. Now we're in fluid. We're not in standoff. We're not in, you know, you're right, I'm wrong thinking any longer. And so, you know, I find it very interesting, this conversation, because I feel we're becoming closer and closer, in spite of appearances, in spite of the projection or this reflection in this physical reality. I think we're very close to establishing ourselves as fluid beings. I really feel that. And yet I'm not sure yet what it's going to take.
Christine, what you said is this is where we go in being in expanded self being, you know, in your self-creator being, and understanding this interaction on the equal level with other living beings on the planet. And this is where it comes to every living, you know, souls. We just talk about that even soul has been hijacked, you know, so it's this reality to where we're creating at that level, where we consciously creating at that level. And this is where we're going. And there is a lot of progress that we have, Christine. You know, because collective field allows us to have this communication. This living field is expanding on a planetary level. So we're able to communicate a lot more. I mean, how many times have we been communicating so much more in between the lines and in between the words? You know, more of this type of conversations online, people would become very uncomfortable with my words or what I'm saying or what I'm bringing up. And I used to always get excited when people get uncomfortable, because that means that something within them is in friction. So that to me was always a sign that that individual is actually feeling that distortion field being uncomfortable. And I said, go with it, go in it, see what's in it, because it's in your own field. I am just expanding and saying, and you don't have to. I'm not an important person. I'm not in any kind of a spiritual authority at all. I never presented myself as such. So you don't have to, with your personality, consider me as authority. But if what I'm saying still bothers you or makes you uncomfortable in your mind, and I am nobody, then think about it. Think why. Why are you uncomfortable? Why are you uncomfortable? What little nobody Lily is saying? Why? You know? And to me, it's like, look at it as a gift that your spirit given to you. You know, I work still through all those. I still have a lot of those things that are still programs in my head. And recently I've been, this distortion field and all of that stuff with the healers and the healing modalities. I had been, learning a lot about all that stuff. And there was things that were making me so uncomfortable that I had a belief system that they were so, that they're okay, that this is taking people into self-sovereignty, but it kept making me feeling uncomfortable. So I knew I had to get in there, because it's not other people. I was feeling that something was wrong. So once I go on that path, but once I touch on that, then of course there's a bigger layer. All I need to do is stand in my truth, because truth does not need defending. My inner spirit does not need defending. It is strong. I'm not in fear that some people that have their big ego built on this is feeling threatened by my expression of my own experience with that. How can truth be threatened by little Lily stated her experience? How, if you are standing in your truth, how are you threatened? How are you threatened to the point to where you have to go and put down all people that are around me? How is that threatened that you, how are you standing in real truth if you have to go?
No matter what we want to get away from in ourselves or have somebody else heal us, help us, unless a being can stand in their own truth right next to you, is the only help anybody can give. I can stand in my truth next to somebody. I can't heal anybody. And the minute I say I can heal you or I'm a healer, I have immediately inverted the dynamic. I have put myself above you and you lower than me. And I won't do that. See, that's my internal truth. I can't do that. I've tried it. I thought I could make a living as a healer. I can't. I mean, it doesn't work for me. And if that works for somebody else, if that's part of their path, I only hope that when you speak your truth, Lily, that people understand you're being true to yourself. I hope that people don't have to attack you. You have a very specific function within the larger body. I don't like the word collective anymore because it's too hive-mindish. It's another one of those words. In the larger body of humanity, where each of us is a cellular, doing our own function, right? You might be a brain cell and I might be a heart cell and you might be the big thumb. I don't know. But, when one gets as Jeffrey would put it in his metabiology, when you become when your character is properly folded, when you're out of fear and you're out of doubt, and when you're more in tuned with you essence, you're going to function the way that you were created to function in this larger body. And some people need to be like a Lily. They need to be outspoken. They need to point these things out. Some need to be more like Claudia, who just really holds the space wide open, who within herself is an expanded state of being. And so when we get out, that's when we start to know that we're reaching a point of a certain type of communion. This is when we know. And if somebody's attacking you or attacked me or attacked Claudia, because we've all experienced that, then we just have to know that that person or being or is actually operating, they're showing their own fear. They're showing them own self. That's all they're doing. That's all they're doing. And I don't really, I've gone through my stages of wanting to point that out to people. I feel like we quickly are moving out of that right now, though. Energetically, we're moving really, really fast.
Yes, and we're not going to miss it.
Right. So, Claudia, I this is something that comes up all the time. And let's talk energetics right now. What we're feeling energetically. You've talked a lot about invisibility. You've talked about the speed of light at in the invisible, or the invisible light.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Maybe 2 years or so is the further I step out of the system, the less visible I become to the system. And I can kind of comprehend this from, if you look at the legal system, which holds humanity hostage by pretending that you are a fiction instead of a living being. A fiction has no life. You can give it life, but a fiction itself is dead, which is why we're living in a death cult. Now, from an energetic point of view, because they are all dead, and this may sound funny, but the ones who work in that system to keep it up, such as, so-called authorities, they are even deader than the rest of them. And so it looks like we move outside of their range of visibility. That's my conclusion for now.
Mm-hmm. So if I were to I often do this when I speak. I'm on camera right now, but I will close my eyes and I'll have an interjection with myself, or I'll interview energetically. And again, we're hooked with words like vibration and frequency and to describe something, but when one becomes closer to their own essence, and they're now generating, they've imploded the dual dynamics within themselves. They're now out of a right left paradigm. They've imploded dualities. So this is electric. You've taken the negative and the positive. You've imploded it within yourself. So you are your own field of gravity and magnetism, and you're less and less dependent on other. And so what I'm seeing with that is that the light, that it's actually, I see it as I'm trying to describe it, Claudia, because I know we've tried to describe it before. It's a light spectrum that's not seeable. It's not viewable. It's not in the material realm. It's knowable. By all means, it's completely knowable. And I think that's what happens when you really do untether yourself from the boxes and from the matrices. You start to spin. You create a density field around you, a coherent field that puts you into the unseen spectrum, to this reality, to the false dead light reality. you've now actually separated from it. I'm struggling here, but I think I got close to trying to describing that. And I believe this is where we're moving to. And I'm recently become enamored of plasma physics. And it's just something so new for me to find myself dumped into. And yet it does explain, because even as Jeffrey so beautifully points out in mapping the human soul growth onto the metabiology, onto the physics, onto the mystical, all of these things have to line up. So why is it that we are now understanding plasma physics? It's because we've reached a level of our conscious expansion that can start to function in that world. We wouldn't be able to see that or understand that unless we had gotten there in consciousness first.
Mm-hmm. And everything, absolutely everything, comes down to consciousness. Mm-hmm. And if you want to expand your consciousness, you've got to become responsible for your own actions, for your behavior, and for your thoughts. That's the entire secret. It's so damn simple. Everything is connected. The key is consciousness. If you want to become a conscious being, i.e., as the new Cage term is, expand your consciousness, it starts with your behavior, your action, and your willingness to become responsible for all you do and think.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you described just now, Christine, and what Claudia just added so simply and beautifully is that sovereignty field, that invisible light, that living field of creation. If you can be in it yourself, that's the only time you be sovereign. Mm-hmm. As we use that word describing a creator being.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Which is the plasma being, because all is plasma and it's fluid, and we live in a super fluid universe that is all potentiality all the time, all timelines. You know, this is literally is what we're going through. And I think if we can go back right now, and maybe this is a very good place to, you know, each of us express what we want to express about sovereignty or self-responsibility, because it is that ultimate thing of I am responsible for all my words, thoughts, and actions. I can't expand into a greater consciousness without that. It's simply impossible. It is simply impossible. These are the limits, the bars, the prison that everybody talks about. They were there for a reason. So you cannot go there, because what do I know as an expanded consciousness is that I am responsible for all. Doesn't mean I'm all, but I am responsible. So if my thought patterns and my actions are creating harm, there's nobody else but me that's responsible for that. Nobody. And this is so much the key of it. And the more I accept of that, the more of the barriers within myself that I let go of, the false ideals, just like you said, Claudia, earlier, it's like infinity amount. As many people as there here, there's variations on a theme, but it is all variations on a theme of fear, of an idea of loss and an idea of other. All of it. All of it's from there. That doesn't mean that we don't confront evil for what evil is. You know, why would we be here otherwise? This realm, this reality wouldn't need to have conscious expansion if we weren't dealing with this predatory usurper that goes beyond the individual. I'm going to mute my mic for a minute, guys, and I'll let somebody else talk.
I can expand a little bit on that, because it's about, you know, this is the thing. This is why I say, you know, people look cartoonish to me with their programs, because when you really touch on this living energy, when we really touch on this field, And then when people tell you, oh, you know, you wrong, and you telling people wrong things and all of that stuff, it's just, I have to hold myself from laughing because people are so serious about it.
Oh yeah.
The victim
Oh
game.
God.
Oh.
Don't get me started on that one.
And people think that that game has value. If they would see, if they could only see how disgusting that game is.
Yeah.
They have that perspective of creator being. When you look at that and you say, how can, it's like, you know, I used to feel bad for people that they couldn't see that they're playing the victim game. I used to feel bad. I wanted to help them. I wanted to help them to empower themselves. This is why I started speaking. I wanted for people to say, hey, look, I'm nobody. I've been programmed, reprogrammed, and all of that stuff. And I can come from the very bottom of it and still say, hey, I can still empower myself if I choose to. And that's what I
Exactly.
convey to people, that no matter how badly you were programmed, and I've said it openly and honestly, I said, you know, I grew up in the religious program, and I grew up in the experiment, a system experiment of enslavement of the souls of the human beings in Soviet Union and what it was. And I've been through all of that stuff, through all this programming, but I still have enough power within me that source gave me to stand up.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
all I wanted to convey to people. I didn't want to point out to you how enslaved you are just so you can feel bad. I wanted to say, listen, I've been enslaved more. I had been victimized more than you have. But I'm standing here, and maybe I'm not standing completely, but I am standing up in little by little by little. And every time I stand up and I go through something and I shed some kind of program, what did I do, Claudia? I shared it. I shared it with other people. And said, this is what I've been through. This is what I understood. This is what I learned by this experience, on that experience. And so the victim in people is so strong.
Oh yeah.
At this point, I used to feel bad for people, but right now I'm saying, you know, if you can't feel that and you're still stepping into the victim programming, and just because it's called, you know, people say something about self-sovereignty, you think it's it. And for you to be able to be self-sovereign, that what you have to do is put somebody else's experience down of their own self-empowerment, or trying to stand up within myself. And if it takes you to for you to grow, if it takes you for you to grow in your self-sovereignty by telling people that, you know, though other people that are doing their own work are wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Then, I mean, are you kidding me? How is that going to work? How is that makes any sense? This is what I'm looking at. And I'm saying,
they are just projecting their own fear.
Exactly.
I mean, I've had it when my kids were young. I've had it all the time because I never made a secret that I don't vaccinate, and that I try my best to stay as far as possible from any medical place. And people would tell me I'm irresponsible. And I laughed at them. I mean, if that's what they think, you know, Yeah, all right.
Right then.
And I just, yeah, I mean, because I'm listening through the language right now, so I'm trying to, and this is something that came up in one of our sessions the other day, and somebody used the word mirror and we used the word projections. And see, this is a very tricky ground for me, because what starts to happen is when we say, okay, when we say that person's projecting onto me. Now, this is a phenomenon, and it really does happen. People do project their fears onto you. They do project their ideas on you and all of that. But when we get to that place in ourselves, this is where we come into the true fluid aspect of our self-created being, is that that projection no longer even functions. You see, there's nothing for it to come into. There's nothing for it to touch onto. And so this is, again, I'm talking about how the measures that I measure myself by. And because there's something, and I'm still exploring it, to be really honest, but we are living in a hall of mirrors. This reality really is one way to describe it, is that we're living in a hypersphere of mirrors. So everywhere we look around, we see a reflection of ourself. In some way, we've created something and we're seeing it reflected back to us, therefore the projection, right? And then you'll find people that'll be very, very active and happily ready to project anything they want on you, right? And yet I'm looking at a place that's feasible, knowable, where that hall of mirrors, all the mirrors have been broken and shattered, where we are now free. That's why I'm saying I feel like we're very close to something, but we're not all quite there yet. Maybe some are, but quite honestly, as long as we're living in this 3D reality and interacting with it, I think we're in some ways still in it. We have to be, because this is what we're speaking through.
Yes.
So I just wanted to bring that up, because I see what I'm hearing is those other people over there right now, they're just projecting onto us, right? And so we get into this dynamic of again, language, and it does come through that way. And, it's like bouncing something off this endless hall of mirrors. It just goes ping, 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 ping. It doesn't ever get outside of that. It's still within that confined space. So my real quest right now is how do we completely exit the game of projection and reflection? Because there's projector and there's reflector. There always will be that. You can't, if you're just a projector, you're projecting out into infinity. There's nothing to hang it on to. If you're playing the role of projector, but we're in a holo, I guess that's a good way to describe it. So I'm just bringing it up again because I feel like we need to keep disclosing the verbal use of words that are continuously, and I'm not discrediting the experience. I've had the same experience many times where I'm very, very aware that what's being projected at me is somebody else's fear, and I've somehow provoked that because I'm a change agent. I'm a declared change agent. Okay, I'm a declared catalyst for that type of reaction. And, I don't make any bones about it. I used to be ashamed of it because I couldn't fit in. But you understand what I'm talking about here. So, yeah. But I'm bringing it up because comes again to that place where I feel like you brought it up. It's a living, fluid, infinite potential field that we're touching into. And what are we, I guess it's a question, Lily, too, because it's like, is there an aspect that you feel that we're like, without losing our I am aspect, the fractal me of this whole greater expanded consciousness, I feel like parts of me are dissolving.
Yes, and parts of the personality actually that are capable of that, that used to, I so agree with you with the breakage. There was a breakage, but there is this reflective ability that we have right now to reflect in that through personality, that fearless. That, because if we don't have a fear to reflect back at the projection, I have noticed that because I've been playing around with this distortion field since, and I think I mentioned this before, when I came into my consciousness, it became very visible, this distortion field of what I call it, on that time, it was like back in November, December of last year, when I came into that sort of full understanding, mental understanding of this field, what it was doing and how it was parroting words and concepts and things of that nature from this, you know, as the living field would express into information field, this parroting field, as I call the parrot, the little parrot, would just, you know, poke at all things and try to parrot that to words and all of that stuff. And I've been playing with it because it counts on that, because when it wants to interact you, and then it will, because it's like a mirror, so it will also reflect what you sort of put out. And so I've been playing with it with some people that try to parrot things from me and try to, well, some people would say trying to steal my information. All those people come in and they try to steal their Lily's information. They go, you know, like there was people that came into Earth Soul Group, and then they all like that it was all about self-sovereignty and self-empowerment and self-healing, and so they just gather a little group and they said, oh, this is a bad group, healing group, we're going to create a new healing group that's going to be right one. And you know, and so I'm like, okay. So I all saw that, and I started playing with this to where I started putting into it or reflecting into it a fearless sort of energy, a fearless energy. And the way it manifested, it's so funny, but the way it manifested in this case that I'm giving an example, people that were sort of, you know, built that based on other people's fear of where I am taking them, that I am taking them onto this very, very, very bad path, that it's not gonna self-heal you, it's just gonna, whatever people come up with, whatever. And so what happened is I projected on that a fearlessness of what they did. I said, hey, that's what you want to do. Good luck. Have fun. I hope you get what you want from it, because that's what it's all about. And you know what happened? The whole thing lost its foundation, because its foundation was fear. But it was being me turning it into fear. And if I would to reflect the fear back at it, you know, it would feed it. It would feed that foundation, because in itself, the parrot doesn't have a foundation. The parrot doesn't speak a language. It's got to be thought. Okay? So that's why I call it a parroting, that energy, because, and so I thought, I can teach it. I can teach it to be fearless. And what happened? Because that group was built on fear, and then it started parroting fearlessness, so there was no more foundation. And this is how I was learning from myself how to interact with this distortion field. And so for me, I started testing it. And so now when you see me just going, taking the fun route, taking the joke route about those people that seem to, you know, saying some very serious accusations on me. And when I take that, I take all the fear out of it, and it dissolves. It dissolves. I don't know how, but to me, it dissolves. Every time I reflect the fearlessness of that, of parroting or whatever, it dissolves. It starts looking cartoonish for what it is. And other people that could pull that fearlessness out of them, they also start seeing it as a cartoonish, and it also dissolves for them. I have seen that with a lot of people, you know, that I'm still talking through self-healing process and talking through and interacting with. And I see that as long as you work on your own self, and if you are truly, really self-sovereign, you will not express fear out. You will not reflect fear. You will stand in your truth. And you will not be knocked off of your self-empowerment, stand in your truth by anybody. It doesn't matter. The devil himself can show up in my face right now, and I can choose how I perceive that. If I'm gonna laugh in its face, I'm gonna laugh in its face, and it can do nothing about that. Absolutely nothing. Because I say right now, this living spirit within me is unfucking touchable.
You know, and honestly, Lily, so really this is a truth. To be a truth is a truth for everybody. And in each and every person that we're speaking to, this is a fundamental truth. It's an inherited, you are an embodied spirit. And an embodied spirit has a right to find its own path and its own freedom from fear. And from, we can call it the devil or whatever. And I just think it's a really good place to sort of end right now, and just like allowing you, me, Claudia, and all of our free expression, and to those that are expressing even within those distortion fields, because honestly, we all are still there to some degree or another. We all are. And also I am really working within is to stop that. And that's the simultaneous aspect of all sovereignty, is also to unplug from the matrix. So it's like we can talk about it, we can disclose it, we can share our insights into it, but ultimately when it dissolves, it's gone. And that's another little piece that everybody can reflect for themselves, is like, how much am I ready to let go of? As a creator, how much am I really ready to let go of? How many people do I need to reflect to me my own reality? To gather around me or not gather around me, to like me or not like me, or however. And that, honestly, in every true sense of the word, is such an individual process. And you and I and Claudia know that. And so imparting that to anybody else that might be listening right now, it's your individual process. It is your individual process. And I can only feel that this humanity, this body of humanity, is going to go through some very, very large transformative events very soon. Don't know exactly what they are. Maybe we'll get together and maybe some of this will become a little clearer to us over the course of probably the next few months, where we can get together and see it's like a film developing. It's going through the bath right now, and we're like looking and seeing what's going to come out here. So I really thank you, Lily and Claudia, and I'll thank myself. Why not?
Thank you.
Yeah, really. But you know,
We're
it's like
pulling this together.
exactly. I hope what you find, and then it's an that it become an empowering thing. And like Lily said, if something is striking you, the listener, as a discordant aspect, then look at both sides of it. You know, don't just do the projection back at the person that brought that out of you. And that to me is like really the only real true process we can go through.
Mm-hmm.
Is to find out, you know, okay, it's hitting me this way, it's causing a discomfort in me. I don't need to blame that other person for it, whether I agree with the person or not. I may not agree with another person. That happens quite often, but I don't need to make them the object of my projection. I just don't. And I think when we stop doing that, when we really stop doing that, then we will have that next little piece in our collaborative universal puzzle here. So I love you, Lily. I love you, Claudia.
Love you both.
Okay, can we see your face again, darling?
Yes.
Hang on.
It seems.
I just want to say thank you both, because for holding this space, and you're absolutely in the fact that there's a lot bubbling up on sort of collective field. And for me individually, I kind of right now feel like I have to really anchor within myself. And also what I'm getting is that you're right, there is a lot of collective things that are bubbling up that are about to burst. We can probably have another talk about that, because there is a lot of things that are bubbling up that I am really excited about.
Mm-hmm.
But right now I'm sort of standing in and trying to anchor as much as possible in my own truth, and standing there in this living field. And for other people, I would like to say also, it's like we do that for ourselves, but right now it is time, because of what is bubbling up in the for us on a, you know, on a bigger humanity level, as a human spirit, as a humanity, as a spirit, as a part of this living field. What we need to do is anchor in that field ourselves. Look around. Who are you standing next to?
Mm-hmm.
What is the platform that you stand on? There is a lot of groupings that are happening right now. People are coming into groups, but just for you, it's like for me and for you, and you know, we're standing together next to each other as individuated consciousness in this collective field. Make sure you stand with people that are also self-sovereign, and then make sure that with them as a group, you standing on that platform that is supporting the individuated consciousness, expressing in its own self-sovereignty. That is not a hierarchical system
Mm-hmm.
hidden behind many masks. You have, yet like we were talking about, it's self-responsibility. It's up to you to make sure that you standing on a solid platform. It's not up to an individual that is leading you, or an individual that is speaking up about their truth, because your truth is not their truth. And that platform that you as a group stand on, it is up to you to know all information and feel into the platform you're standing on. It is up to you to stand on it or get off of it. It's not up to the person you've been following for years. It's not up to anybody but you. And so I choose to stand right now in my own truth. And whatever is going on with me, I'm just sharing with other people. I'm not saying to people, follow me. But I'm finding myself standing with people like you, Christine, like Claudia. There's so many other people that I can name right now that are standing in their truth, but I want to stand on the platform of truth, or standing in their individuated consciousness and expanding it, right?
It's we talk about a lot of words, and we're using these words. And we started out this conversation with saying words are so limited. But I will say that, for myself, that it is my love of truth, my love of truth. And that has a very, very deep aspect to it. So perhaps we'll just leave that right there, is that love of truth. It's not a religion. It's not a religion. It's not a system. It isn't. And it has to come through the individual. It has to come through the excavation of the own being state. This is the only way to be there. So thank you, ladies, so much. And I'm just going to, Claudia, I don't know if you want to say anything.
No, I apologize for not being on camera because my internet is being very kind today.
Sucks.
Yes, it does.